That night, the city bells rang as Constance Grayle was pulled through a crowded street by her friend Kate. People were everywhere, pushing in every direction, and Constance honestly thought there must be some kind of festival happening. Kate tried to convince her to go home, but before they could move, the crowd surged again and forced them apart. Constance panicked. She called out for Kate and ran through the mass of people, not even realizing she had crossed a barricade meant to block off a punishment site. A strange silence spread across the square. On a raised platform, a cloaked woman slowly walked up the steps of a podium. When the hood was pulled back, the crowd revealed her face. She had jet black hair and glowing amethyst eyes. Even in that terrifying moment, Constance thought she was beautiful. The square went quiet. Then the woman spoke. She calmly declared a curse upon everyone watching. Rain immediately began to fall. The crowd exploded in anger, screaming that she was a monster, a murderer, and the true cursed one. Constance covered her ears and shut her eyes, overwhelmed by the cruelty in their voices. She had never seen people act with such feral hatred before. When she opened her eyes again, the woman was looking directly at her. For a brief moment, everything felt silent. The woman gave her a sad smile and whispered something only Constance could hear. The executioner raised his blade. Lightning struck at the same instant, the sword fell. Blood splashed across Constance as the woman was executed. The crowd cheered, shouting that it was finally over. That night haunted Constance for the rest of her life. 10 years later, at the Grand Merillion Palace, Constance was now 16. Viscount Hemsworth congratulated her on her engagement and claimed the fates had blessed her union. After all, the Grayle family lived by the motto, "Thou shalt act with sincerity." But those words felt hollow to her. Months earlier, her father had fallen into massive debt. To save the family, the Bronson family offered to pay everything on one condition. Constance had to marry their heir, Neil Bronson. Neil was polite, kind, handsome, and well-mannered. Constance had always dreamed of marrying for love, and being chosen by someone like him felt unreal. She truly believed she had been lucky. But rumors started spreading. Her friend Mylene told her people were talking about Neil and Pamela Francis. Someone claimed they had seen them together in secret. Kate tried to shut it down as gossip, but Mylene insisted Pamela had a reputation for moving from man to man. The rumors weighed heavily on Constance, but she chose to trust Neil. He treated her kindly, just as always. That trust shattered one night under a streetlight. Constance saw Neil holding Pamela. Pamela noticed her watching and smirked before pulling Neil in and kissing him. Constance ran away in tears, wishing she could pretend she had never seen it. Still, she knew she had to face it honestly and talk to him. When she turned, she nearly screamed. A beautiful woman in red stood beside her. The woman casually commented that the ballroom looked festive. Still shaken, Constance invited her inside, and the stranger entered the celebration with her. Inside the ballroom, Constance struggled to think clearly. Her mind was full of betrayal and fear. A timid girl named Brenda congratulated her on her engagement. Constance felt like she had seen Brenda before, often around Pamela. When Brenda prepared to leave, Constance noticed her hair ornament falling and warned her. Brenda panicked when she saw Pamela watching from above. She asked Constance to hold the ornament while she retrieved her evening bag. Later, Pamela suddenly shouted Constance's name. The room went silent as Pamela accused her of stealing Brenda's ornament. She openly mentioned the Grayle family's financial problems and suggested Constance was desperate enough to steal. Neil hesitated, unable to believe it. Pamela then grabbed Constance's bag and dumped it out in front of everyone. The ornament fell onto the floor. The crowd gasped. Pamela demanded an explanation. Constance begged Brenda to tell the truth, but Pamela cut her off and accused her of lying. She comforted Brenda while painting Constance as a criminal. Pamela then told Neil he should annul the engagement immediately because marrying Constance would damage the Bronson family's reputation. At first, Neil hesitated because there was no solid proof. Pamela pointed to the crowd and claimed the witnesses were the proof. With Viscount Hemsworth present, she demanded the annulment happen immediately, and as the weight of the moment closed in, Constance fell to her knees, desperate and overwhelmed. While Pamela mocked the Grayle family motto and called her sincerity a lie, that was when the woman in red intervened and agreed to help Constance, possessing her in the process. And suddenly, Constance's voice changed as she calmly and firmly asked who the real thief actually was, causing Pamela to snap and admit that she had always hated Constance. She hated her sincerity, her status, and how easily things came to her, so out of jealousy, she had used Brenda to frame her. And then Constance reminded everyone that Pamela had been secretly kissing her fiancé as she questioned the witnesses one by one, starting with Wayne, who had seen Brenda hand over the ornament. And as the truth spread through the hall, Constance turned to Viscount Hemsworth and demanded the engagement be voided. warning him that if he refused, the scandal of forbidden intimacy on royal grounds would reach the king himself, leaving Pamela frozen in shock as she realized this was no longer the weak Constance she thought she knew. And after bowing politely and wishing the disgraced couple well, Constance walked out while Pamela tried to chase her but tripped in front of the crowd. And the next morning, Constance woke up believing everything had been a dream until she saw Scarlett Castile floating beside her bed. The executed woman from 10 years ago, now revealed as a ghost, who explained that she had once been a powerful noblewoman exposed, humiliated, and executed after trying to poison her romantic rival, and that she had been trapped for years, unable to enter the Grand Merillion again until Constance unknowingly allowed her inside because a deal had been made. And from then on, Constance would live her life helping Scarlett achieve vengeance. Scarlett had already made up her mind. Every last person involved in her execution was going straight to hell. The problem was, she had no idea who they actually were, and how could she? She'd been framed from the very beginning. Poisoning Cecilia was never something she would have done. It was crude, unimaginative, and far beneath her. That's where Constance came in. Scarlett decided Constance would act as her agent, the one who would uncover who truly orchestrated everything and make them pay in the most fitting way possible. Constance wasn't thrilled by the idea. She hesitated. Seeing her reaction, Scarlett pointed out that the Constance family's debts were now tangled up with her own, and with her engagement already annulled, she didn't exactly have room to refuse. She also asked whether turning her back on repayment really sounded like the sincerity the Grail family loved to boast about. Constance had no real answer to that. In the end, she agreed to the deal. Not long after, Constance paid a visit to an orphanage. Introducing herself as Letty, she told the nun that she'd come on behalf of the Orlemond family. She explained that they wished to collect letters from the Morris Home for Orphan Children to commemorate Lady Lily on the anniversary of her passing. This wasn't just a courtesy visit. It was part of Scarlett's plan to question anyone who might know the truth about what happened years ago. Scarlett believed Lily Orlamonde would be key. After all, they'd been friends. Following Scarlett's execution, Lily devoted herself entirely to charity work, supposedly to atone for her sins. People even began calling her the White Lily of Charity, praising her fairness and kindness. But 2 years ago, Lily poisoned herself in her family's chapel. The reason was never made public. Scarlett didn't buy it. To her, Lily choosing to end her own life made no sense at all. Someone with that sharp tongue and stubborn streak would never go quietly like that. They were friends, or at least, that's how it looked from the outside. Scarlett, of course, scoffed at that idea. She claimed she'd rather perform a handstand on the edge of a cliff than keep company with Lily. Still, Constance remembered the stories. Lily was often the only person who visited Scarlett when everyone else avoided her. Lily knew better than anyone that Scarlett would never poison Cecilia. Which meant one thing was certain. Someone clever and dangerous had framed Scarlett, and no one yet knew who. Scarlett believed Lily had come to say goodbye that day. Realizing the situation was beyond her control, she might have wanted to help, but ultimately chose her own survival. Whether guilt or fear drove her afterward was unclear. After collecting the children's letters, Constance moved on to her next task. She needed to visit the site of Lily's death. To do that properly, she dressed as a nun and headed to the Marquess of Orlamonde's estate. At the gates, a guard eyed her suspiciously before escorting her to the chapel. Once inside, Constance instinctively tried to pray for the deceased. Scarlett immediately shut that down, saying Lily wouldn't appreciate empty gestures. What mattered was finding the truth, and Scarlett suspected Lily would have left something behind the painting. When Constance lifted it, she found an item attached to the back. Just as she took it, footsteps approached. She barely managed to hide the object before the door opened. The man who entered made Scarlett bristle instantly. Randolph Ulster. Trying to test whether she was actually a nun from the orphanage, Randolph casually asked Constance about a boy from the orphanage, a red-headed child named George. Before Constance could slip up, Scarlett fed her the correction. George had chestnut hair. Tony was the redhead. Crisis narrowly avoided. After excusing herself, Constance declined Randolph's offer to escort her back to the orphanage, claiming she had other errands to attend to. Once outside, she finally breathed again. Constance quietly explained that Lily had been married to Randolph of House Richelieu. Scarlett, however, saw him as her sworn enemy. Some even called him the Lord of Death, and frankly, Scarlett didn't think that title was exaggerated. Hearing this unsettled Constance, and she couldn't shake the feeling that he suspected something about her. Scarlett couldn't say for sure, but she admitted Randolph had an instinct that made him dangerous. Back in the chapel, Randolph noticed the painting sat slightly crooked. Bits of torn paper lay scattered on the floor. Returning to the orphanage, Constance left behind the borrowed clothes and a small donation. That was when the children gathered around her. One of them, Tony, suddenly spoke a strange phrase, kiriki kirikuku. Constance had no idea what that meant. Tony explained it was a spell Lily had taught them, meant to reveal bad people. If someone reacted to the words, it meant they were dangerous. In that case, the children were supposed to run and warn everyone else. That raised a chilling question. If Lily taught them that spell shortly before her death, was she really suicidal, or had she been preparing for something worse? That night, Constance returned home and opened the package she'd taken from behind the painting. Inside was a key and a note bearing a single instruction: destroy the Holy Grail of Eris. Neither of them knew what that meant. Eris was the goddess of discord and strife in the myth of Pharis, a wicked deity said to have driven entire nations to ruin. Ironically, it was also the alias Scarlet used during her nightlife escapades. The key itself bore a number, but no indication of its origin. There simply weren't enough clues yet. The next day, Constance met with Kate. Her friends were worried, especially after the engagement scandal hit the papers. One headline read, "Even a lamb will charge a hound when provoked." After the incident, Pamela unsurprisingly fled back to her family's domain under the excuse of ill health. As for Neil, he wasn't so lucky, and aristocratic clients began boycotting the Bronson Company. Because of that, Constance said Neil came to her that very morning to apologize and ask for her forgiveness, and she even told him how to handle the situation. She didn't blame the company as a whole, though she knew she was far too sincere for her own good. Kate warned her to stay cautious, since overnight fame wasn't always a blessing. Still, Kate promised she'd always be there for her, and she assumed Constance would want nothing to do with romance for a while until she spotted an invitation to Amelia Godwin's ball. With that, she wished Constance luck in finding a new suitor. Scarlett, of course, had other plans. Knowing she was good friends with Amelia, she decided they would attend the ball. Baroness Godwin adored gossip, especially other people's misfortune. If handled correctly, Amelia would spill everything she knew. A few days later, at the ball, Amelia immediately noticed Constance seemed more refined than before. Still, she paled in comparison to Scarlett, or so Amelia thought. When Constance greeted her using Scarlett's exact mannerisms, Amelia was visibly shaken. Once Amelia moved on, Scarlett directed Constance toward Aisha Huxley. That was when Constance spotted Randolph again and nearly panicked. She begged Scarlett to take over, but Scarlett loathed the man and abandoned her without hesitation. Randolph approached, addressing her as the sister he'd seen before. He cut straight to the chase, asking what she wanted. Was she after his late wife's will, or something else entirely? Terrified, Constance silently prayed for help. Reluctantly, Scarlett returned. Taking control, she demanded proof of his claims. Randolph suggested returning to the orphanage to confirm whether she was truly the same Letty. Scarlett declined coolly, saying she valued herself too highly to arrange such a meeting with a stranger. Before things could escalate, glass shattered nearby. Margot Tudor had attacked Teresa Jennings, accusing her of having an affair with her husband. The chaos ended the conversation, and Randolph let Constance go for now. After the party ended, Constance ran into Amelia outside and asked her what had truly happened to Scarlett 10 years earlier. Amelia gave the official explanation, saying Scarlett had been executed for attempting to poison Cecilia. However, Constance sensed that the story was incomplete. After a pause, Amelia revealed more, mentioning that in the 7th district of Inmes Mars, at the old Montrose estate, an invitation had once been hidden inside Earl John Doe's hat. As she prepared to leave, Amelia added a final remark that only those who managed to survive were considered winners in life. She quietly expressed her hope that Constance would not be forced to leave the stage too soon. That marks the end of today's Recap. If you enjoyed the video and want more of it, please support the channel by leaving a like and subscribe. Let's help us reach a current goal of 10K subscribers.